Please listen, Bernie. We have something important to tell you. The tide is turning on your friend Joe, and we have to tell you these things now before it's too late. Here's an article from the Washington Post. Biden should step aside. We can't sacrifice another woman for political gain. The Democrats should drop Biden for the same reason the GOP should have dropped Kavanaugh. This is by Liz Lentz, a columnist for the Cedar Rapids Gazette. And this article is just one of many data points to which I'll link in the information section below this video. Here's one by Liz Brunig from the New York Times. Democrats, it's time to consider a Plan B. Tara Reade's allegations against Joe Biden demand action. The reason I'm bringing this up is because a number of Democrats have said in very recent polling that we need to do something. These are not party insiders. These are normal Democrats. This is from Morning Consult by Eli Yokley. After watching Biden deny Reade's claims, 1 in 4 Democrats want a different nominee. 26% of Democrats, including 40% of those under the age of 45, said the party should select a different nominee. The party's younger voters and women are less likely to view Biden's denial as credible than older or male Democrats. 38% of all voters say elected officials should resign when facing credible accusations of sexual misconduct. Former Vice President Joe Biden's unequivocal denial of Tara Reade's sexual assault allegation is considered credible by most Democratic voters, according to a new Morning Consult poll that showed a video of his comment, but more than a quarter of the party's rank and file nonetheless want the presumptive nominee replaced. I first saw this one yesterday. New Emerson poll shows a majority, 51%, of Bernie Sanders supporters leaning toward supporting an independent or third-party candidate. How likely are Sanders supporters to consider backing an independent or third-party candidate? This is staggering, really. While the numbers of very likely and no chance are roughly equal, this somewhat likely category, 29.1%, is amazing. That's over half of Sanders supporters saying they're somewhat likely or very likely to vote independent or third party. 11.5% more are only somewhat unlikely to do that. That's a huge shift, and it's a recent shift. And that's before Donald Trump's campaign has really gotten a hold of this.
Some pretty interesting new polling from our friends over at Morning Consult. So they showed voters a clip of Joe Biden's defense saying that what Tara Reade accused him of did not happen. And then they asked whether Democrats should look for a different nominee. Let's put those numbers up. So 26% of voters said that the Democratic Party should, in fact, select a different nominee. And again, this is after watching Biden's denial of Tara Reade's allegations. 13% said they're not sure, they don't know, and 61% said no. If we dig down into the age subtabs, it gets even more interesting. So Democrats under 45, 40% actually say yes, Democrats should be looking for a different nominee. Democrats over 45, very different story, much lower numbers there. But Sagar, this is like a quarter of the Democratic Party saying they should be looking for another nominee. That's pretty sizable chunk.
That's massive. By the way, not many people in media picked up this particular story, and I wonder why. And those younger numbers are absolutely devastating. We already know from the College Pulse polling that you covered here on the show that what is it? It's like 22% of young voters are either considering not voting or voting third party in this election. That's of college students, critical demographic to the Obama coalition. We know that amongst younger African Americans, younger Latinos, and all younger Americans of all races have much less support for Joe Biden. He had almost zero support amongst that group during the Democratic primary. And now, during this, you can see that younger voters under the age of 45 who have very different inclinations about Me Too and about the way these stories are handled and about who should get the benefit of the doubt and are much more open to the ideas that there's a lot of hypocrites out there who have misspoken and who have spoken differently in the past, and they can very much see you. They are not happy with Joe Biden. Almost, what is that, 45% of 40% say yes under the age
and 18%
of 45.
say don't know. So a majority are either saying yes or maybe effectively there, and only 42%, less than a majority there saying no. And I think you're right. I think it's about their attitudes about Joe Biden in general, and then also their view specifically of the Me Too movement. I mean, you can imagine if you're an older voter, like, you know, men have been getting away with this stuff for a long time. You're kind of like cynical about it. You're kind of accustomed to it. It's like, yeah, we've been voting for like lecherous dudes for ages now. What's different? Right?
And that needs to change. You old people watching my show, and I'm an old person too, we old people need to figure this out. For the sake of the young people who might get sniffed by people like Joe Biden, or fondled, or worse. And as Joe Biden said, it's about power. And we need to shift the power towards the young people. There's a reason that the young people feel the way they do. It's because they don't have the power. Allowing someone like Joe Biden to become the president of the United States, even if he had all of his cognitive functioning intact, is simply wrong. And those of us who are older and therefore more jaded, we have to come to grips with this. And the time to do that is now. A new wrinkle in the plot is that a federal judge has ordered New York Democrats to reinstate the primary vote. Mark my words, this is going to be a major referendum on the sea change in how people feel about Joe Biden. This vote can be conducted in safety via mail-in ballots, so we're really going to see what's up here. And, dear Bernie, that brings me to my central point. You may want to sit down for this. You once asked us not to listen to you. You were telling a reporter, in effect, that you can't control your voters. You said that if Hillary wanted their votes, she'd have to earn them. Not only that, you have encouraged us to organize strikes and protests. You also have said you really want to defeat Donald Trump. Really, really, really want to defeat Donald Trump. So here's the bottom line. We are not going to vote for Joe Biden in November. We're just not. And we have our reasons. Look, you want us to learn how to make our own demands. You want us to think for ourselves. You want us to look out for each other. You've told us so countless times. This is what we are demanding. We are not asking you to break your word and run as a third-party candidate, and ultimately we are not asking you to do anything you haven't asked us to do, but we are asking you to leave your comfort zone. We cannot, in good conscience, vote for Joe Biden. Therefore, we are demanding, just like you taught us, because of the recent order by a federal judge to put your name back on the New York State primary ballot, that you must unsuspend your campaign and continue to seek the Democratic nomination. You have asked us to do a lot, yes, for our own sake and not yours, so we are asking you to do something huge for all of us. I've already mentioned, according to Emerson polling a few days ago, 51% of us are likely to vote third party in November. That means Joe is not going to defeat Donald Trump. It's going to be like Hillary's failed campaign, but worse. Even though this polling is not going to be reported on by mainstream media, it's real. Emerson polling has been held up as credible throughout this whole contest, and from last time too. And from earlier in the election cycle, we see that at least 15% of us are likely to vote directly for Donald Trump. That got quite a stir on Twitter, even though the mainstream media didn't pay that much attention to it. This number is almost certainly higher now, and the 80% number in the poll doesn't account for recent allegations of sexual assault by Joe Biden. It said back then that 80% would back Biden. I bet half won't back Biden now. And just to be fair, everyone else who truly wants to defeat Donald Trump, and not just block you, should also rejoin the race. Even corporatists should be encouraged to rejoin if they believe that they have a shot at winning in November. But if you truly are serious about defeating Donald Trump, then you must understand that the best opportunity there is to defeat Donald Trump is if you are the nominee. You can unite the progressive and liberal Democrats like no other candidate, and history shows enough poor people will vote for a social democrat like you to build the party and soundly defeat the inept Trump. You don't have to mention Joe's obvious cognitive decline or his problematic behavior around women and girls. You can still refer to him as a decent person and your friend, although most of us would not do the same. A lot has changed since COVID-19 burst onto the scene. A lot has changed with Joe's situation. I think you will find a drastic shift in the delegate math as the sexual assault allegations against Joe gain traction. Many of Joe's most ardent supporters are feminists and/or are strongly identified with the Me Too movement. Again, this is a demand. We are not going to unify behind anyone else. This change.org petition just went up. Joe Biden must drop out. And hopefully you'll be able to see lots of people who have signed it in the next few days and in the coming weeks. Hannah James started this petition, and it says, as a result of Joe Biden's history of sexual misconduct, exemplified recently in Tara Reade's allegations of being sexually assaulted in 1993 as a staffer in Biden's Senate office, we are calling on Joe Biden to drop out of the race for the Democratic nomination. Any candidate who is still running for the nomination when Iowa voted on February 3rd should be allowed, if they so choose, to restart their campaigns and begin collecting additional delegates. The DNC should work immediately to ensure voters that the selection of a replacement nominee will be done democratically, reflecting the will of the electorate. We also strongly encourage women candidates to re-enter the race so as to give voters the option to nominate a woman, though by no means is this a suggestion that we must nominate a woman. Moreover, we believe that to ensure due process, all delegates won by Joe Biden up to this point should be allocated evenly to candidates who choose to re-enter the race. This would ensure that the candidates are on a relatively even playing field going forward in the nominating process. In short, if Democrats want to beat Trump in November, which is itself a moral imperative, we must not nominate someone who is credibly accused of sexual assault. You cannot beat a lying racist rapist by nominating a lying racist rapist. It is time for Joe Biden to drop out and other interested candidates to unsuspend or restart their campaigns. If you're watching this and you agree that this is what Bernie should do, please share this with Bernie on Twitter and share it around with your friends on social media. The tide is turning, and we need to help that tide turn even faster.